What if the real battlefield of oil wasn't in the refineries, but across wooden tables, where men sat with ledgers and trembling hands? Rockefeller knew the empire would not be won with derricks alone. It would be won by breaking the will of those who sold him the lifeblood of oil and making them accept his price or face ruin. By the early 1870s, Rockefeller had already tightened his grip on Cleveland's refineries. But oil was only as cheap as the crude he bought. If the wells demanded too much, his margins shrank. If competitors gained access at higher costs, they could survive. To dominate, Rockefeller needed more than refining power. He needed to bend the entire chain of supply. He was not the kind of man to shout across a table. Negotiation to Rockefeller was not conversation, it was calculation. Suppliers would arrive believing they had options. By the end, they realized every option led through him, and his offer stood lower than they imagined. Imagine being a small oil producer, your barrels ready, your debts heavy. You enter Rockefeller's office. He listens quietly, no expression. Then slowly, he explains the railroads work with him. The refiners work with him. Competing buyers cannot match him. His offer is final, lower than cost, perhaps, but with one promise. He will always buy, always pay. A terrible mercy. Others might haggle. Rockefeller waited. If a producer resisted, he simply turned away. Days later, weeks later, the man would return, barrels unsold, desperate. Rockefeller never needed to argue. Time itself did the negotiating. His secret was volume. He didn't need to offer high. He offered certainty. While rivals bargained for a handful of barrels, Rockefeller promised to take thousands, but only at his price. Against the scale of Standard Oil, no independent buyer could compete. Suppliers surrendered, one after another. One story echoed through Pennsylvania's oil towns. In Titusville, producers gathered, demanding fair prices. They formed associations, swore they would not sell cheap. And then Rockefeller's agents arrived, calm, polite, armed with contracts. Some producers held out, but as debts mounted, as wagons sat idle, one by one they broke ranks. The association collapsed. Rockefeller's price prevailed. Rockefeller rarely needed to raise his voice. His threat was silence. He could walk away, knowing his refineries had stockpiles. His railroads could wait. The producers could not. Every passing day was starvation. He knew it. They knew it. And when they broke, he was still there. Same price, same calm face. Behind every negotiation stood his secret weapon, the railroads. When a supplier thought of resisting, Rockefeller could remind them, gently, that without his cooperation, transportation costs would rise. A producer could not move oil without the rails. Rockefeller did not need to block them directly. A whispered word to a railroad clerk could double the freight overnight. To the public, he spoke of efficiency, of stability, of ensuring the industry survived. But in the small rooms, under lamplight, his price was not fairness, it was dominance. Producers might curse him, but they signed anyway, because the alternative was collapse. And yet, once broken, many producers clung into him. He always paid, he always bought. They resented him, but they relied on him. He transformed desperate men into permanent suppliers, locked into his system. Their hatred mattered little. Their barrels kept coming. Rockefeller never spoke of cruelty. He spoke of numbers. In his ledger, the columns told the story. Input costs, transport savings, profits. To him, negotiation was not about men, but margins. Behind the calm eyes, he saw only equations, and the equations always ended with his price. When crude fell under his control, everything else followed. Rivals who bought high were crippled. Railroads who depended on other shippers starved. Retailers who tried to sell against him found their supplies strangled. By pressing down at the source, Rockefeller controlled the entire chain, from well to lamp. Each deal ended the same way, a handshake, quiet, final. The producer walked out, shoulders bent, contract in hand. Behind him, Rockefeller remained still, no smile, no triumph, just silence. Because to him, this was not conquest, it was order, and order demanded obedience. By the mid-1870s, Standard Oil not only refined the nation's oil, it purchased it at prices no rival could match. Producers cursed him, but they sold to him. Competitors loathed him, but they starved. And in every barrel that entered his empire, the proof was written. Rockefeller had bent not just the industry, but the men who fed it. Others fought in markets, in courts, in legislatures. Rockefeller fought in silence, across tables, with patience sharper than any blade. He did not need to raise his voice. His power was in making men lower theirs. This was the true war of oil.